One-Eyed Man.
After a series of delays mainly related to COVID-19, the latest film adaptation of Frank Herbert's iconic novel has finally been released. Having opened up to mixed reviews and showing promise at the worldwide box office, its release stateside hasn't been that great financially. Many might attribute this to it being simultaneously released in theaters as well as on the streaming service HBO Max, which may have affected its box office earnings. Despite this, Warner Brothers has still greenlit the second movie and has announced a release date exclusively to theaters on 23rd October 2023. However, before Denis Villeneuve tackled the daunting task of adapting Frank Herbert's novel, David Lynch took a chance in 1984. And let's say it wasn't exactly what he envisioned. Lynch also had the idea of adapting the novel into multiple films, but Universal Studios overruled him and said he simply had to do it in a single 2-hour film. The result is in fact a version that tried to stay faithful to the book, but because it was so condensed, there were themes and plot elements that were merely highlighted but never fully explored. The film is also heavily uneven in the sense that a few interactions between characters were cut noticeably short. There are still many things to appreciate about Lynch's version: the fine art direction, set designs, special effects, cinematography, and there's a reasonable amount of intrigue to suggest there is an epic story in there somewhere. It just didn't have the capacity to properly tell it. Like with many big-name film releases, there are many independent filmmakers who like to capitalize on the potential success of said major release. In this case, we have 4 films where the word Dune was added to the title, likely in the hopes of drawing attention. The first thing that comes to mind is these films are probably low-budget garbage. But is it always the case, or might there be a chance that they are actually good? These are the 4 Dune movies no one talks about. During a devastating space battle, a rookie fighter pilot and her gunner are shot down and end up crashing on a nearby planet. With her gunner mortally wounded and having only 2 days of life support, she must navigate the treacherous landscape and fend off survivors of a downed enemy ship who have no intention of letting her leave. Clearly not a big Hollywood production with massive effects, but an indie sci-fi movie that has a bit more heart than I expected. While not heavy on plot, this film is mainly a survival thriller which mainly revolves around the situation being presented. Take the scenario where a downed fighter pilot is trapped behind enemy lines and give it a sci-fi spin and you have the plot for Dune Drifter. Story-wise, not much else gets elaborated. We just follow our lead protagonist Aldar, played by Phoebe Sparrow, as she races against the clock to find a way off the planet. Aldar is a character who is resourceful and quite feisty, yet being a rookie, she often finds herself almost knocking on death's door on a number of occasions, which makes the action quite intense. While comparing it to Dune would be pointless and would just ruin the experience, Dune Drifter was certainly a better offering than expected.
We stand together. We can beat the son of a bitch.
In a time when water has become the most sought-after commodity and the world now being ruled by vicious warlords, a young woman decides to take a stand after her brother is brutally murdered, and sets out to find warriors who will help her. She finds a lone traveler named Michael who takes her to Freetown, where she'll find the toughest warriors who never back down from a fight. One of many collaborations between producer Roger Corman and director Sergio H. Santiago, which features a reasonable collection of colorful characters, a few of which played by B-movie favorites: David Carradine, best known for his role in Kill Bill, Rick Hill, known as the original Deathstalker, and Luke Askew, a veteran actor who has played many villain roles. A fun little post-apocalyptic action film, Dune Warriors never really has a dull moment. The performances from the lead cast are great. The chemistry between them definitely shows and seems like everyone worked well together. Although there is 1 or 2 performances from the supporting cast that seem phoned in. Nonetheless, you will still be treated to a fun time and a very satisfying third act. Fans of both Corman and Santiago's films can expect the usual enjoyable fare. Those who are new might find it a bit polarizing, but as many of their films are, for an acquired taste.
We must embrace the world that we are making together.
A deep space crew becomes stranded on a desolate planet and soon discover what kind of creatures lurk on the surface, along with the startling revelation regarding the fate of another crew who also became stranded on the same planet. Probably the roughest looking movie I have seen in a long time. Dune World has an interesting enough concept, but it is severely hampered by a lot of filler, so much so that it felt like it meandered throughout its runtime. None of the performances stand out in a good way, and the effects are nothing to write home about. The creature effects are hardly effects, but clearly a bunch of plastic toys. Likely not a serious effort, but unless you happen to be someone who finds these types of films amusing, there is not much else to recommend it for.
We'll recover the freighter when the worms are dormant. The crew's expendable.
A rescue crew go to search for a marooned freighter on a desert planet. They have their work cut out for them when they encounter a bunch of giant sandworms, which happen to be the planet's apex predator. A very simple premise, which is more likely to remind people of Tremors than Dune. It does have a few callbacks to the latter, such as the desert planet, the sandworms, and the fact that it features Sean Young, who also starred in David Lynch's 1984 version. Otherwise, this film does appear to be its own thing. It may not have a very complex narrative, but it is fun to watch. With a cast who give very enthusiastic performances, it never really gets boring. The effects are decent enough not to look extremely cheesy, and the characters are thankfully not annoying, a common Achilles heel for a low-budget film. As long as you don't expect something along the lines of Dune and more, a kind of sci-fi version of Tremors, you should be in for a reasonably good time. So, have any of you seen the films featured in today's video? Did you like any of them, or did you think they were terrible? Leave your comments below, as they always generate an interesting conversation. Also, check out the Mad Hatter Previews original trailers currently highlighted. Subscribe if you want to see more, and share this video with your friends. I'll catch you on the next one.